Today in class we talked about histograms and how they are similar to bar graphs, but they have one special feature that's different. So as you go through these slides, we're going to show you a couple of differences and a couple of similarities, and then we'll talk about the questions from class and get you started on those. Okay, here's an example of a frequency distribution chart, which on your homework it asks you to complete. You'll notice that they have the same three categories that you have on your homework, except instead of class interval, yours says grades. And then yours still says tally in the center and frequency on the end. So in class, we talked about separating your data into intervals. So this one looks like it goes every 40 numbers, they've separated their data. So they had a really wide range. It went from 0 all the way up to at least 239. Now when you look at your data for class, you're going to notice that it doesn't go quite as far. And so we mentioned possibly counting by tens, but you're going to set yours up just like this one. You'll have your intervals going in the first column. Then you'll record your tally marks. Every time you see a number that happens to fit that category, you just put a tally. And frequency at the end just means count up all your tally marks. If you have 5 tally marks, the frequency is 5. Here's question 1. And in third period, we kind of got it set up and started. In eighth period, we didn't have a chance to get it set up. So the first thing you need to do is identify your lowest and highest number. And if you look in this, the lowest number is 66 and the highest number was 100. In third period, we talked about possibly grouping your information in tens. So you would have everybody in the 60s together in one, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and then 100 to 110, even though it's not possible to get over 100. So I'm going to fill in those, and I'm probably going to run out of space, so I might need to go underneath. But here's what I would do. My first range is going to be 60 to 69, then 70 to 79, 80 to 89, 90 to 99. And now here's what some people aren't sure about. Even though we don't have scores over 100, you have to keep all your intervals equal. So if these go by 10, I have to make my last section also worth 10. So I'm going to make it say 100 to 109. I'm also going to draw straight lines going across because I want to make sure I get my tallies in the right row. So I'm going to section this off. And then I'm just going to go through my list and go one by one and put a tally mark in the row that it corresponds with. So when you look at your first number, it's 78. Well, that fits in the 70s, so I'm going to put a tally mark there. The next number is 69. That fits in the first category. 67, first category. 100 fits in the last category. 79, 80, 96, 88. So you just continue going down the list, and once you get through the entire list to the last number, you're just going to count up your tally marks. How many tally marks you have in this first category, you're just going to write that as a number in the frequency section of the table. At the bottom of this question, it says draw the most appropriate data representation below. So if you think about it, our grades were sectioned off into intervals, all the 60s, all the 70s, all the 80s, 90s, and then 100. So I'm going to put grades on the bottom. That's going to be the label for the x-axis. And our grades were a range. It wasn't just one specific grade. It was 60. So the first range is going to be 60 to 69. The next range is going to be 70 to 79. The next range is going to be 80 to 89, 90 to 99, and the last category is going to go 100 to 109. Then on your y-axis, you're going to have to put the number of students or frequency. And if you look at these numbers, they are going to range, I think once you finish counting, the highest number is 11. So every graph should start at 0. I'm going to change this to yellow because I think you could see it better. If I have to go from 0 to 11, probably counting by ones is fine. But I'm only going to put the dashes at every other, so I'm only going to have the even numbers, and then the odd numbers can be in between. So I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. And then the odd numbers will fit in between. If you, on your own paper, can write those in neatly, then that will be awesome. My handwriting on the video is going to be too squished. Okay, the thing you have to think about is histograms, the bars are touching. So let's say, for example, I know in the last category, there's only one score that's in the range of 100 to 109. So my bar needs to match up where 1 is. But it's going to be as wide as that entire section. And it's going to be touching the section before it. Okay, I'm not sure how tall the next one was because I did not count those up. But however tall it is, it will be touching the category right after it, 100 to 109. These bars need to touch when you build your graph completely. Another great idea is to put the amount above the bar or inside the bar, just so it's easier for the reader when they're looking at your graph. When you look at question 2, it says there's going to be 39 pieces of data. 39 commercial airlines selected the United States. These are the ages listed below. Okay, so we have decimals, so that is really going to be hard to graph as a single bar. This would really work best if you had an interval or a range. So we are definitely going to do histogram on this one.
Are you done?
No. The first thing you probably need to do is make your frequency table. Decide what your ranges are. The table goes from 0.1 all the way up to 27.3. So that's a really far range. So we're not just going to count by like 2s or 5s. Maybe 5s would be okay, but you might even want to think about counting by 8. Ages, tally, and then frequency. And then you can build the histogram after that. So my first range is 0.1. I need to go up to 27.3. We probably could do like 5 categories. So maybe if we count by 6. So anybody that is age 0 all the way up to 5.9. They would go in one category. And then the next thing would be 6 up to 11.9. And then 12 up to 17.9. And then 18 up to 23.9, and then our last category would be 24 up to 29.9. So we have our 5 categories or our 5 intervals, which should work pretty well. Now I'm going to go through the list just like on question 1. If a person fits into this category, I'm going to put a tally mark. So the first number is 3.2. They'll fit in the first one. 22.6, 23.1, 16.9, 0.4, 6.6, 12.5, 22.8, and then I'll just keep going until I get to the end of the list. When you get through the last number, the last thing you want to do is fill in your frequency section. So you just count up how many tally marks end up being in the first category, write the number. You would then finish out by creating the histogram. Just like in question 1, we're going to use these age intervals as your x-axis labels, and then we'll graph in the frequency for how many people fit those ages. Question 3 says graph the budgets for a middle school. The data should this data be represented with a bar graph or a histogram? Well, bar graphs are great if you have specific categories. Histograms are for intervals. If you take a look at this, we have categories or we have classes. So I could graph each part of the middle school's budget individually as a bar graph.
Mommy, can you tear this off?
And I would just graph their exact information.
Mom, can you tear this off?
It doesn't matter if you make horizontal bar graph or vertical bar graph. It's totally up to you. So each section, I have history, math, science, art, LA, band, technology. And awesome sauce because they made every category have a different starting letter. When you label the y-axis, our lowest amount in the budget is $1,500. Our highest amount in the budget is $9,350. So probably we want to go up to at least $9,500. Your graph always needs to start at 0. I think I'm going to count by 2,000s. 2,000, 4,000, 6,000, 8,000, 10,000. And then my label would be dollars.
Mom, can you tear this off?
This is going to be separate individual bars. So for history, 1,500, that's going to be a little bit under 2,000. And then I might just go ahead and label it with the exact amount. Math, 2,500, just barely above the 2,000 mark. And then label it 2,500. And then you would just keep going down the list until you got all of the parts of the middle school graphed. Hopefully you guys found this helpful. Sorry that we did not get as far along in class as we could have, but hopefully the Nearpod activity we did at the beginning was also fun for you guys. I'll see you tomorrow.